So welcome to the Oklahoma Assembly. This is going to be kind of like feeding from a fire hose, but but again, all the information is corroborated in those sources and a lot of the books. And so this is just putting it all together so it doesn't take me 3 hours to explain it to you. And so here's the sources. You've got, something is wrong when an American affidavit of probable cause. This is available on Amazon, or you can get it for free on the TASA website. This is also available on Amazon, and this is the book I'm reading through right now. But it's not available for free, so you just can get it on Amazon. Then you've got The Sovereign's Way. This course in particular teaches you how to protect yourself without legal code. And I think all of us agree we don't want to get confused and have to learn all the legal code and all the clever loopholes that get you in trouble. The Sovereign's Way is all about coming forward in your private capacity as a man or woman. And if you need to, you press a claim of trespass by way of theft or trespass by way of extortion or whatever way that someone has wronged you. And it's a great resource. It's about a 3-month course. You take 10 modules. A lot of the information in this presentation comes from this website as well, because it's in harmony with what you're learning on the American state assemblies. That's what I like about it. It's a completely different organization, but they're speaking the same language. And then you've got AntiRunRights.com and then TASA.AmericanStateNationals.org. Okay, so getting into the website or the presentation. So areas for educational focus. We are going to focus on just the stuff in bold, what we need to do, some contextual understanding, assembly structure, state nationals and state citizens, paperwork. We're not really going to focus that much today on protecting yourself during this reconstruction, or knowing the sea jurisdiction, how they play, and how to operate as one of mankind. But we will be talking about that in future classes. So this is the bird's eye view, kind of trying to capture as much as we can before you jump into the details. So here are some concepts. Why is the land and soil so important? Because mankind came from the land. So some of you who grew up in church, you might have come across this scripture: by the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. That's the basics of where that comes from. Mankind did not come from the sea, and we did not come from the air. Mankind exists on the land, and that is the only jurisdiction that is substantive, that's real. So that's why we say that man exists on the land. So we came from the land. Only people, those of mankind, create law. Law is expressed means it is written down on the public record of the land. So like whenever you were born, your parents in the old days would have recorded your name in the family Bible, or made an announcement and recorded it down at the county clerk the land records office, right? And when someone in your family passed away, they would do the same thing. They would make a public announcement and record it on the land. This is from John Little: where there is no law, legal is implied. That's the way he says it. I like it. The law must be written down by a man or a woman. And if there is no law written down, then people are free to presume. So the legal is implied. And that actually has a source. It actually comes about by way of honor. If you have a 5-year-old that's inherited a large estate, and that 5-year-old does not know how to manage that estate, you would imply a trust. And so the man or the woman who has that trust relationship, who is responsible for managing that estate for that little boy, they have a fiduciary responsibility, and they are bound by honor to, you might say, do the right thing. So, but that element has been twisted and turned against us, and we'll get into that later. So property rights are the highest right a man or woman can have. In private property, here's a good definition: it's anything or anyone which you believe belongs to you to the exclusion of anyone else in society. It does not have to be things. A wife can claim her husband as private property because he belongs to her to the exclusion of anyone else in society. This does not mean slavery or anything like that. It just means that that special someone, or your house or your land or your dog or your sons or your daughters, they belong to you. They do not belong to the government. That's kind of a good way of saying it. Men and women express the law for their private property. That's the trick. So it's your private property, and you express the law for it, unless you don't. If you don't express the law for it, someone else is going to make a contract for you, and they're going to make up the law for you. So here's a good saying: if you don't know your rights, you don't have any rights. And here's another good saying: if you don't own property, you probably are property. Because only mankind owns property. So legal fictions: persons, corporations, anything abstract that exists on paper or in the mind only, cannot achieve parity with men and women. When you write a fictional story, or when you write a contract down, if you were to throw that paper away, or burn it up, the ideas expressed on that paper do not exist anymore. They do not materialize. And so that's what a legal fiction is. It doesn't actually exist except in the mind. The definition is similarity, close correspondence, or equivalence as regards state, position, conduit, quality, degree. These are core concepts that are going to come up later in the presentation. That's why I'm putting them here in the beginning. So here's a nice graphic illustration of what I mean by abstract fiction. So this is the Never Never Land of abstract fictions, which exist on paper in the mind only. And you can see we've got some cartoon characters here. The Nautilus, the whole story of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, that's a fiction. You got East of Eden, the Pink Panther, Frankenstein. Then you also have international sea jurisdiction. So I haven't said it in this presentation yet, but there are 3 jurisdictions to law. There is the land, and there is the air, and there is water. And so this is what there's the international sea jurisdiction. That is the jurisdiction where corporations exist, and titles, and incorporated entities, and legal vessels. And that includes any company that is providing government services that is incorporated, right? So that company only exists in the mind only. And especially it's obvious whenever it has its own Dun and Bradstreet number. So you can see the United States Dun and Bradstreet number is 052714196. The state of Oklahoma also has its own Dun and Bradstreet number. That is evidence that it is incorporated, in fact, meaning it is not an unincorporated entity. It's not a collection of men and women that have your consent to rule you. They exist in the mind only, which means that they cannot achieve parity with living men and women. And I've highlighted, U.S. citizens, trusts, estates. That'll come up later. So here's mankind is comprised of men and women. On the land and soil jurisdiction, men and women exercise their right to self-determination, choosing a political status or lawful person. So state nationals and state citizens are both lawful persons. That's not the same as a legal person, such as a U.S. citizen. And there's a distinction here. We typically say land and soil. We marry them together because the land is, the soil is surface to 6 inches below. And the land jurisdiction is 6 inches below all the way down to the center of the earth. So, but they're so closely linked that we just say land and soil often. And the state nationals occupy the soil jurisdiction. And when they step forward to volunteer to accept the duties and obligations of serving in the republic, that's when they assume the title of state citizen. But everyone's a state national. If you were born on this land, then you're a state national. If you are a naturalized citizen who wants to adopt a state, you are a state national. In the sea jurisdiction, there are legal persons, U.S. citizens, citizens of the United States. Most Americans did not choose these statuses of their own volition. These statuses were implied because Americans had not declared their status on the land and soil. If the law is not expressed, legal is implied, just like John Little says. The contract law requires 2 parties to be in existence. That's also important to remember. A trust remains in effect for only 3 generations. If a beneficiary does not come forward in that time, the trust is forfeited. And that we'll get to that when we talk about the national estate trust that that we are heirs to as American state nationals.